scale the team, and I started to get to know people less and less, and started to depend on, these levels in the organization to lead the day-to-day operations in the business, that setting the structures in place became much more important. So like a few that have been helpful, we have a weekly all-hands meeting, which we've had to iterate on the content, the design, when it is, many times to make sure it stays useful and helpful and relevant. But that's the chance I get every week to get up in front of the company and talk about values and vision, celebrate success stories. And we've actually started rotating it, so it's not just me that leads it, but it's actually anyone on our leadership team, which I think people have really appreciated.
And you have 3 offices,
yeah,
right? So do you do 3 different ones, or is it one big video conference?
We've invested probably too much time and energy and money in trying to build video conferencing, so it's feels like everybody's in one room, though video conferencing always sucks.
Yeah.
So, the kind of New York and London, I think, do always miss a little something of the special sauce, but we try to also make sure people have the ability to travel. So a lot of people move between offices quite regularly to ensure there is that great connectivity.
So that, and sorry, just to jump right into it, that all hands, because we do one here too, which my agenda is different every single time. Do you have a stock, what you go through, an order? Yeah. How has that evolved? What do you cover? What's important? How long is it actually?
It's a half hour.
Okay.
Every Friday, 165 people. It's called Holy Time because the implication is you have to be there. It's not optional. It's, holy. It's special.
Yeah. It's a ritual. Yeah.
And, the content's changed. Today we spend time on news and updates for the whole company that are relevant. Metrics. We're really metrics driven. So we talk about how we're doing against our goals. We spend time on, a few what would be maybe more distinctive things. So one is FUD. Yeah, which is a concept we stole from Stripe. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt gives anybody in the company the chance to air what we call an existential concern about the business. And this defining quality is it doesn't get a response. So it's kind of cool. You just let people say things that are on their minds that are concerning, and you just let it linger. It's kind of awkward the first time.
And you must have started that when you were small.
Yeah.
That's not something you start at 150 people.
We probably started at about 50 people.
Okay.
FUD. We try to spend about 5 or 10 minutes every week on an AUA and Ask Us Anything, where you can ask the founders anything you want.
Cool.
And then we do Kudos, and Kudos is celebrating values. So we have 5 values, which we've tried really to make something that aren't just posters, but are things we live. And the way we do that is we celebrate people that have lived up to them, and we hire against them, fire against them, and kind of make it part of the company conversation.
Back on this FUD thing, I think that's an interesting concept. 2 questions. Do you ever find, I personally would think that could be intimidating, especially as the company grows larger, to just stand up and say, this is the thing that I'm worried about. And, maybe other people aren't worried about that because they know something I don't know, and I'm putting myself out on a limb to say this. So do you notice that people get nervous about it?
For sure. But I would say we care deeply about transparency. We want people to feel that it's okay to have those concerns. Mm-hmm. So examples, our board documents are made in Quip and accessible to everybody in the company. Mm-hmm. And we feel Slack is generally open. We try not to use email, but then the concept behind it is smart people, when given access to information, make smarter decisions. And so we try to have this culture where it's okay to ask tough questions or to be concerned, and there are no repercussions for doing that. And it's funny, I was debating with a co-founder last night because we actually, to address that, because for sure, still people feel a little bit uncomfortable. We made it possible to submit anonymous FUD.
Mm-hmm. AFUD.
AFUD. And we were debating its merits because on the one hand, maybe you get more FUD. On the other hand, it kind of undermines that culture you're trying to create where you feel comfortable saying things. And, you want people to perceive FUD as internet trolling, where it's just a place to bash ideas or concepts.
It could bring down morale because somebody else could just say, oh yeah, that's weird, and we're not addressing it. And
I'm not sure there's a perfect answer, but for us, I think people appreciate that they can do that. I think there's a value in that creates a good input to the culture.
And in terms of the not answering and letting things linger, I mean, I would think that could be very interesting, but also could become frustrating for certain people if you're saying, well, I'm trying to tell you that something needs to change and I don't maybe have the answer, but I want to know that it's being worked on. Are there other mechanisms in place to follow up with these people or to let everyone know what's being done with these existential problems?
So yes, that is an issue. I would say that the way it's evolved for us, we introduced about 6 months ago, in addition to FUD, an Ask Us Anything section, which if you're looking for a response or you want one of us to talk about how are you going to react to this, that's your place to really get that answer. Mm-hmm. And FUD is shared, and sometimes it is really important for us to follow up on it. So we make sure to do it. It's just we don't do it in the meeting to preserve that.
Write an article about it or write something about it. So you mentioned there that you really don't want to create a culture you really want to create a culture where anyone can ask anything and it's fine. It can be uncomfortable, it can be whatever, and it's okay. And then just prior to that, you mentioned you're now starting to rely on the layers of management in between you and your employees to actually grow the company and manage the company. So how do you find those managers that also feel the same way? Is that something that is actually becoming easy or was always been easy? How is that kind of, the first part of your job recruiting? What have you kind of learned from that experience?
Well, I spent a good part of our early days running recruiting myself. And so I would say until we were about 45 people, I led recruiting at Wealthsimple, and I think that was really important. And for us, I think we try to find people that will fit into our culture and believe in our values. Like this whole values thing, I think it was easy. Before I was a founder, I probably didn't care enough about values, but it's clear that done correctly, it's a really helpful and important way to build a business is to codify your values and live them. Yeah. And so for us, finding great managers and leaders in the business has been around, are these people that represent our values, that are going to live up to them, that are going to do it in ways that are better than we can ourselves. And I think that's been our strategy is hire people that are smarter than us to take on pieces of the business and give them all the support in the world to do the very best work of their lives. That's kind of the way we think about recruiting. Yeah.
And by default, let them be themselves, which is smart, talented people.
Mm-hmm. And as somebody who is in the process of becoming a Wealthsimple customer.
Thank you for your business.
Yes. Just going through all the steps. It is a nerve-wracking thing for people who don't have a ton of experience with investing and who've just sort of let the big banks do what they do because it's easy to trust a big bank because you know that they exist. You've heard of them. They have a track record. Are you hiring? I would imagine that in departments like customer success and in those kinds of more customer-facing roles, are you also looking for people with experience managing wealth, or is it more of a we teach you the fundamentals and our tool really does the heavy lifting and we're here to provide amazing customer support and we're looking for people who have that customer experience?
It's a mix. Mm-hmm. In our customer support team, there are customer support representatives, and then there are also financial advisors. And part of our job when clients call is making sure that if they're looking for financial advice, that they get routed to the right place. Yeah. But if they're looking for more technical support, someone else can handle that. And actually, we invest a lot in training. So one of the career trajectories or paths for our customer support team, and that's a whole new thing, by the way, creating career paths.
I was going to say,
is to become a financial advisor. So we will give you the support and training required to help you pass your exams and actually become a licensed advisor if that's something that's interesting to you.
That's very cool.
Yeah. Super cool. Okay, so you brought it up yourself. Career paths. When did that become like an urgent need for Wealthsimple, and how did you kind of build it out? What did you learn in that process?
I don't think that became important by size of team. I think that became important by tenure. Right. It's like after someone had been around for a year or 2 years, they start asking themselves, like, what's my next challenge? Yeah. And it becomes really important, we've learned, to create that challenge and opportunity at the company because you don't want your best people that have been doing great work and have been trained up in your way of doing things to leave.
Yeah.
And when you're growing fast, you're fortunate to have all sorts of cool opportunities, both more traditional, like, the next stage in your career is to become a manager or a senior manager or totally different parts of the business, if that's interesting to you. So